So before I get started, I'd like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. And oh my gosh, he said Christmas. Oh no. Well, you're not going to change my mind. Carolyn and I don't celebrate. We don't really see a need. Our life is pretty content. We have what we want. We have a nice life. So I don't think we need a holiday to tell us that we are special to each other. I mean, I understand the meaning of it. There are times I would still like to have a Christmas tree or Christmas lights, but I don't need them. It was nice growing up. Christmas was. It was nice when I was raising my daughter, but now I don't need it anymore. As you know, I built this tiny house a few years ago. As a matter of fact, coincidentally, I just made a video yesterday, and I'll put an up next box at the end of this video to that video about part 2 of the build. We put the windows and the roof on in that video, and it's just a compilation video. I guess I should say I'm not really sure how to organize this video. I've thought about it all day and I'm not really sure. Is the house big enough? Is anything we do big enough? Is it enough? And I get a lot of comments in the comment section. Folks believe that we live I don't know, they just feel like we need more. Materialism. It's funny because we live in a country where I think like 75% of the country believes that our country is too commercialized. Everything's about selling and buying and selling and buying. But then when you actually say, hey, stop buying, and they can't sell it to you, oh no, gotta have it. The house, the house is something that's very interesting to me. Back in the Depression era, I think that each individual in a house had, don't quote me, but it wasn't very much. I think it was 100 square feet per person. So we have a 200 square foot house, 2 people live in it. That's the size it was back in the Depression or early 20s or 30s or whatever. But now it's something like 300 square feet per person. It's huge, it's ridiculous. I got an email the other day about the truck. I really enjoyed the email. I didn't know what to say about it. Backroads, I think his name is. That's his YouTube name. I'm not going to give you his real name. And he was talking about the pickup truck. This is a 2015 Chevy Colorado. I bought it new. It's 2-wheel drive, 4-cylinder. The reason I bought it was I had a Chevy Malibu. That was a 2011. And my wife left, my ex-wife now. She had a Chevy Colorado. That was a 2007. We both really liked that truck. So she had that for 7 years when she left. I don't know if she still has it or not. I mean, it didn't have very many miles on it. It didn't even have 100,000 miles on it when she left. But the Malibu I had to give to my daughter as part of the child support agreement. I needed a vehicle and I needed a truck. I'm sure I needed a truck. Well, I liked the Colorado. So I started looking for one. What I had not realized was in 2012, they stopped making, I think it was 2012, small trucks, specifically the Colorado. I'm not sure about the Ford Ranger. I know they stopped making Ford Ranger, but I'm not sure what year they stopped it. And then 2015 was the first year they decided to bring the Colorado back on the market. And this thing was Motor Trend Truck of the Year. And I'm not bragging about that. I just found it interesting. It is a really good truck. And apparently it's even better now than it was back then. So when I started looking for it, I didn't like the double cab. Well, that's not true. I didn't want the double cab. The truck we had, my ex-wife and I, wasn't the double cab. Apparently that's all there is now, or at least in 2015. You couldn't buy a single cab. I went to one dealer and he was trying to oversell me big time. And remember, I was already in huge debt. I had good credit, but I was in huge debt. And he's overselling this thing and overselling this thing, and I walked out of it. I'm really glad I did, because I went to the next dealer. I had armed myself a little bit. I knew what I wanted, how much interest I wanted to pay, how much I wanted to pay on the truck. And I told the guy exactly what I wanted and how much I wanted to pay and the whole thing. And we got it. I think I paid $26,000, might have been $26,000 for this. And I did think that was quite a bit of money, because the first one we bought was, I feel like it was $14,000. So in 2007 it was $14,000, in 2015 it was $26,000. But it was more truck. There was more to it. It had a better engine. Don't get me wrong, I like the engine in the old truck too, but this one, it's like a 6-cylinder back in the 90s. I mean, this thing is just a powerhouse. And you look at the horsepower, it was comparable to the 6-cylinder back in the 90s. I forget what the horsepower was, but, well, it's paid for now. We paid for it within, I think, the first year and a half. At first, didn't know what we were going to use it for. We were just running back and forth to work with it. We eventually moved out of the apartment and into a little farmhouse, a little 400 square foot farmhouse. And so that's the first time we used the truck. And I actually scratched it. There's a scratch in here somewhere, right on this side somewhere, I forget where. It's pretty scratched up now. So, and I even bought a little bed liner for it, so the bed is safe. I don't know why, it doesn't matter anymore. But this thing's got 80,000 miles on it, and it's an absolute champ. It has done everything for us, if you think about it. We bought a pop-up camper and we traveled around for a while until that thing burned up. Now, what was interesting about this truck is it had AT&T Wi-Fi, so we could hook up our computers to it. So that was a pretty big bonus to us for the traveling. Well, then somebody burned the camper down, so we built that little truck camper and put it in the back of here. And we lived in this for 2 or 3 years. I mean, think about this. This little truck did all that in its short little life. Well, now it has done so much more. Grocery getter, food for the chickens, a valuable piece of equipment. So what Backroads was saying is it's interesting that we were able to do this with a small truck, very modest, very inexpensive compared to a full-size pickup truck. Because a lot of people, that's what they would have gotten. They would have had a 4-wheel drive pickup truck. Now, I know every time I mention 4-wheel drive, people will get mad in the comment section and talk about how you have to have 4-wheel drive. The price of 4-wheel drive is not worth it to me. This thing's been stuck once. We backed into a yard that was made out of gravel to pick up firewood. And I didn't want to do it, but the guy who had the firewood told me he was convinced I could get out. He was sure of it. I do it all the time. I told him I don't have 4-wheel drive. I know, you can do it. So we loaded it up and it got stuck. So I had to pay $150 for a tow bill. Now, when we think about this, I've had this thing 8 years. I've paid $150 in a tow bill. Now, there is a question in my mind as if a 4-wheel drive would have actually gotten us out of that situation. I'm not sure it would have. But let's just assume for a minute that we had gotten out. So in 8 years, I could have paid, well, I think a 4-wheel drive Colorado would have been $36,000, or I could pay $150 for a tow bill. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, but you could have had a camper instead of a pop-up camper or living in the back of the truck if you had a bigger truck. Yeah, I could, but I didn't need it. And so now we start talking about my life, the way I have lived my life. And Backroads brought this up. He says, your truck is a good representation of how you live your life. I have to agree with him. I've not needed a lot of material things in my life. People are going to argue that when I was with my ex, I spent a lot of money, and I did. Of course, I can put all the blame on her, but I do think that I tried to spoil her. So let's put it that way, that it's my fault that I spent so much money on her. We bought a house. She wanted a house, and I didn't want a house. But she said we had to have a house, so I got a house. I have spent too much money in the past, but I'm more comfortable this way. So this house, I always ask Carolyn if she's happy here, and she says most of the time. Her downside to it is when the weather is bad, there's not a lot to do. Now, in my mind, when she says that, it's like, well, what would you do in a regular house? So I asked her that question today. Well, I could rearrange, or I could straighten up, or clean, but there's just not much to do in this house. It's always in a good condition. Well, fortunately, we have the camper now. So she could go down here, we can turn on the heat, she can do whatever she wanted to do in the camper. But when you really think about a house and its size, the cost of the house isn't the only cost. The bigger the house gets, the more expensive it gets just to live in it. Well, first of all, you just got to buy stuff to put in it. If we buy stuff, nothing fits. But specifically heat. Heating costs has always been a challenge for me my entire life until I got here. We were talking about the wood stove. You got a little used wood stove, 85% efficient. It wasn't the best on the market. If we gotten the best on the market, it would have been a catalytic converter, and it would have cost a few $1,000s to get it. But with this one, we spent $300 on a used one. It was only used twice, and it nearly heats us out of here. I have to light it no more than 3 times a day at its coldest. Recently, with the temperatures being so warm, we've only had to light it maybe once a day. So I really got to thinking about this guy's email, and I was like, funny that it just occurred to him that this is how I live my life. I live it minimalistically. I say that all the time. So why do I need a big truck? And that's what he was talking about, was a big truck. And I was thinking about it. I even looked it up. A truck, a full-size truck, 4-wheel drive, first of all, uses a lot more gas. Just like the wood heat, it would have used a ton more gas to run back and forth to get groceries or firewood, whatever it is you needed to get. $63,000 is what it would cost now to buy that. And I for some reason have this number stuck in my head at $75,000 is what we were gonna have to pay for a full-size truck, 4-wheel drive when I bought this one. Obviously I'm wrong, or truck prices have come down, but for some reason $75,000 was stuck in my head. In honesty, I'm gonna say 63. So anywhere from $36,000 to $63,000, I paid somewhere around $24,000 to $26,000. And I paid it off, so I didn't have to pay the interest. Now, I couldn't even imagine trying to pay off a big bill like that, $75,000 to be debt-free. Whew, that'd have been terrible. But my whole life is this way. Solar panels. In order to live off solar panels, you have to reduce the amount of electric you're using. Oh, we live in this commercialistic world. The United States is terrible. But you keep buying it. So they keep selling it. Stop buying it. Now, every time I bring up my frugal lifestyle, somebody brings up my John Deere lawnmower. So I'm heading down there now. So I was thinking about this, and I was talking to Carolyn about this video, and she says, "You're mistaken. That's not right. You originally went to Walmart, and I wanted to buy a Murray," which is true. I had a Murray years ago, and it lasted 10 years. We used it the first year we bought it to go around town cutting grass, so it was used a lot that first year. It was running when we got rid of it. It was the only problem it had was the hood kept falling off. So we went to look for a Murray at Walmart, and they didn't have any. Well, it just so happened that we went to Home Depot, and this one was on sale. Now this is the S100. If you know anything about John Deere's, this is the smallest or most inexpensive brand or size or model, whatever you want to call it, they have. This was the first year though that they put an actual hydrostatic transmission in it. All the ones before that were belt driven. So I wouldn't have gotten a belt driven one. I would have went the next step higher. So this was on sale. Now the reason I liked that we got it, you can find parts for it very easily. You just get online, you go to the John Deere dealer, heck, you can call them up and say, "Hey, I don't even know what I'm looking for here," and you can find it. Whereas with that Murray, I was always having to go to the maintenance guy, and he was always trying to upsell me, and it was just always a pain, where this is a lot easier to work on. Here's my philosophy about stuff. Buy the best that you need, but don't buy the best. We were talking about the washing machine. We just recently bought a washing machine. It's an apartment-sized washing machine. It's the best that we needed. It's not the smallest one. It wasn't the cheapest one, but it isn't a full-size one either. We didn't need that. So here's my thinking. I was trying to figure out how to say this in a video that made sense. If you go into something, wanting to buy something, a camper, a house, a car, and you go, "Oh, wow, this is amazing," that's too much. You don't need it. But if you go in there and you look and think, "Yep, I think this will work. I think we got this. Yeah, I like this. This will do us just fine." Perfect. So to finalize this, let's talk about the generator. When you're a nomad and you're investigating generators as a nomad, the only brand anybody's ever talking about is the Honda generator, inverter generator. It's $1,000. It's the best on the market. You can't beat it. Yeah, you can. You can get a Champion. Now, I know this is a dual fuel, but you can get a Champion. And I've had this sit right next to a Honda. Well, the black one I had, that black one ran 8,000 hours. That one was $400. So, I mean, you're saving more than half on the price. And it lasts just as long. The thing is are you really going to want to run a Honda that much? I ran this thing, that black one, non-stop. It was running all the time. As a matter of fact, when we moved here, I ran it for 2 weeks straight. Never shut off. You're not going to want to run a Honda that much. Get the best that you need. Get the best quality that you need. But that does not mean get the best or the most expensive. That's just bragging rights. That's all that is. So, if you'll click this up next box to take that video where I was showing you that compilation video about the tiny house. So if I can inspire you to buy the best that you need so you can live your dreams. Thanks for watching.